You're at a party. Someone walks up to you, arms wide open, huge smile on their face, and they clearly know you. They say your name, they reference the last time you met, they might even ask about your dog by name. And you are standing there, smiling back, nodding, internally screaming because you have absolutely no idea who this person is. You know their face. You might even remember where you met them, what they were wearing, what you talked about, but their name? Gone. Completely, embarrassingly, infuriatingly gone. And then comes the guilt, the shame spiral, the quiet inner monologue that says, "What is wrong with me? Am I a bad person? Do I just not care about people?" And here's where I need to stop you, because the story your brain is telling you in that moment is not just wrong, it's almost the complete opposite of the truth. Forgetting names has almost nothing to do with how much you care about someone. And today, I want to show you exactly what's actually happening inside your head, why your brain does this, and what it quietly says about the way you experience the world. Let's start at the very beginning, at the moment you first hear someone's name. When you meet a person for the first time, your brain is doing something extraordinary. It's not just listening, it's scanning. It's reading their face, picking up on their energy, processing their body language, estimating social threat or safety, noting the sound of their voice, the way they hold themselves, the context of where you are. Your brain is pulling in an enormous amount of sensory and emotional data all at once. It's like trying to download 50 files simultaneously on a slow internet connection. Something's going to get dropped, and more often than not, what gets dropped is the name, because the name, neurologically speaking, is the least interesting piece of information in the room. Think about it this way. Names are arbitrary. The word James doesn't tell your brain anything meaningful about James. There's no smell to it, no texture, no emotional charge, unless you already associate it with someone. Faces, on the other hand, are rich with biological information. Your brain has an entire dedicated region, the fusiform face area, that does nothing but process faces. Names don't get that kind of VIP treatment. They go through the same general memory pathways as any other general memory pathway, like a phone number or a zip code. And you know how well you remember those. There's actually a fascinating concept in memory research called the Baker-Baker paradox, and it goes like this. If I tell you that someone's job is a baker, that they bake bread for a living, you're far more likely to remember that later than if I tell you their last name is Baker. The word is identical, but the occupation connects to images, smells, warmth, texture, associations. The surname connects to nothing. It's just floating in midair with no hooks to grab onto. This is why names specifically are so slippery. They are the brain's version of a wet bar of soap. And now here's something that might actually surprise you. Research in cognitive psychology suggests that people who forget names easily tend to be highly observational and deeply present in social interactions. They're so attuned to the person in front of them, picking up on mood, nuance, emotional undercurrent, that the verbal label gets crowded out by everything else. In other words, you're not forgetting the name because you were distracted. You are forgetting it because you were paying attention to everything else. There's also the role of anxiety here, and this one is sneaky. For a lot of people, the moment of introduction, "Hi, I'm so-and-so," is actually a moment of mild social anxiety. Your brain is simultaneously trying to make a good impression, figure out what to say next, assess the situation, and manage the internal noise of how you come across. And while that's all happening, the name gets about 2 seconds of processing before your brain moves on. Psychologists call this attentional narrowing. When your cognitive resources are stretched, the brain prioritizes what feels most urgent, and in a social moment, the name rarely wins that competition. But here's what I find genuinely fascinating. The same trait that makes you bad with names often makes you extraordinary with faces, stories, emotions, and atmosphere. People who forget names tend to remember feelings. They remember that a conversation felt warm or awkward or electric. They remember what was said about someone's sick parent or struggling kid. They remember the emotional texture of an evening long after the specifics have faded. That's not a deficiency. That's a different kind of intelligence, one that prioritizes meaning over metadata. Of course, that's cold comfort when you're standing in front of someone who clearly remembers you and you're quietly panicking. So let's talk about what's actually going on in the memory architecture, because understanding this can genuinely change the way you think about yourself. Memory, despite what we tend to assume, is not a recording. It's not a hard drive. It's more like a reconstruction, a story your brain retells every time you try to remember something. Names are particularly fragile in this reconstruction because they lack narrative. Your brain consolidates memories during sleep through a process of meaning-making. It essentially asks, what's worth keeping? And the answer is almost always emotional and contextual. A name without a story attached to it gets quietly filed under probably not essential and deprioritized. There's also an effect researchers call the tip of the tongue phenomenon, and if you've ever stood in front of someone knowing that you know their name, feeling it almost physically, like it's one breath away, you've experienced it. Studies show that this happens more frequently with proper nouns and names than almost any other category of word. The name is there, in storage. The retrieval pathway just gets jammed. It's not absence, it's a traffic jam. And interestingly, stress makes it worse. The harder you try to force the retrieval, the more the pathway seizes up. It's a cruel irony. The more socially important it is to remember, the less likely you are to successfully pull it off. Now, I want to gently push back on one more thing, because I think it needs to be said. Our culture places an enormous amount of moral weight on remembering names. There's that famous idea, often attributed to Dale Carnegie, that a person's name is, to them, the sweetest sound in any language. And there's a real truth in that. Names matter to people, their identity. But the flip side of that has been a kind of unspoken social rule that if you forget someone's name, you are signaling that they don't matter. And that's a leap. That's a story we're telling over the neuroscience. The cognitive architecture of memory doesn't care about your character. It processes information the way it processes information. And for many people, in many brain types, names simply don't stick the way other things do. Some of the most emotionally intelligent, deeply empathetic people I can think of are terrible with names. And some of the best name rememberers are people who are simply good at one specific type of rote memory, not necessarily deeper or more caring as human beings. So where does that leave you? It leaves you, I think, with something more useful than guilt. It leaves you with curiosity about your own cognition. It leaves you with permission to stop treating a neurological quirk as a character flaw. And if you want to get better at names, and you can with a few deliberate techniques, you do it not from shame, but from genuine interest in bridging the gap between how your brain works and how social connection works. Try repeating the name immediately when you hear it. Try associating it with an image, a rhyme, a feeling. Give the brain a hook to hang it on. Give the name some narrative weight in your mind. Make it mean something, even artificially, and watch how much stickier it becomes. But more than the techniques, what I hope you're walking away with is this. Your brain is not broken. It is prioritizing. It is absorbing the parts of people that feel most alive and most human. It is, in its own slightly inconvenient way, loving people more than it is cataloging them. And maybe that's worth something. Maybe that's worth a lot. If this resonated with you, if you've spent years quietly embarrassed about this exact thing, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. And if you want more of this kind of deep dive into the hidden architecture of how your mind actually works, stick around. There's a lot more to explore.